make sure that you get references from from other operators, right? Network with as many people as you can. And when you find people who are investing in the same market, ask them, hey, do you have any references for property management companies?
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello, welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me, excited to have Suzy Sevier and Michael Barnhart. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, Todd. Thanks so much. We're really excited to be on your podcast.
Yeah, I love your energy. So this is just a blessing to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you on, and we'll dive in. So Suzy and Michael, they are founders of Adventurous Real Estate Investors, and they specialize in return on impact. So through real estate investing, they create immeasurable impacts in their family, with their friends, with their community, and everybody they serve. So they are also, and I think this is pretty cool, they're living across the ocean and they're investing in the US. So we'll dive into what that is, what that looks like. How do you even do it? So let's get started. I'm sure there's a lot more about the both of you. So why don't we just kind of dial it back a little bit? Let's talk about your background. Like, you know, how did you start this journey? Why investing? What does return on impact mean? Let's just kind of dial it in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. So we started our journey actually because of COVID-19 and the lockdowns. So during the first lockdown over here, it was a little over 100 days. It started like March 23rd of 2020, and everybody was sent home and we could only leave once a day to go out and work out or go to the grocery store or the pharmacy.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And that was just lockdown number one. We just got done with number 3. So yeah. And with that, we choose not to have a TV. We just aren't TV people. But we do love reading. So we decided to have a mini book club with one another because I had gotten a job as a program manager over here, but had not started the position yet. So I had time. And Michael, after he was done writing his first year report for his PhD, he had time. So in our mini book club, one of the books we read was Multiple Streams of Income. And a couple chapters in, it talks about real estate investing. And Michael's like, skip all of the first chapters, just read real estate investing. We have to do this. And so once we dove in, and what I mean by that is consuming so much content, right? Like podcasts were on 24/7. We were reading as much as we could. We were looking at forums, reading forums, joining forums, and then we found out that there's this whole great world of meetups and conferences. So slowly we got to all of that. And once we found out that virtual was going to be here for a little bit, we knew that it was the greatest opportunity for us to get in the space from over here, because now brokers were on Zoom. Everybody was on social media like crazy. You could find out about all the meetups so much easier, meeting people actually. We have probably met people from at least 30 states, and that wouldn't have happened without everything going online. And so that was really just our greatest in to it all. And then I guess even to I know there's a lot to unpack in between, but from when we started till right now, we have been lead sponsors on 2 deals and totaling 188 units in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So just even for anyone out there, you can literally do it from anywhere in the world. You just literally have to believe in yourself and have the great people on your team and have those systems and processes in place, because it works. And that's the whole thing, right? All of us want time freedom. But with that, I hear all the time, oh, I want to be able to travel. And oh, and I want to do this. I'm well, if people want to go on 3 or 4 month vacations with their family, or even just over the summer, right, for school break, then why can't we just do this 12 months out of the year instead of 3?
Yeah, that's super cool. And I didn't even think about that. COVID, things got shut down. So you guys being from somewhere across the world is no big deal. I mean, what's the time zone difference from Tulsa to England? Is it 9 or 10 hours?
6
it's
hours.
6.
Oh, only 6.
Yeah.
Right, still, but I mean, that's awesome. And you don't have to, because everybody's virtual. Like you said, like all these brokers are virtual, everybody's virtual. These conferences and the meetups all went virtual. So it didn't matter that you guys couldn't like go live to the Tulsa meetup or anything like that, because nobody else was going live. You had no disadvantage there. It didn't matter. So that's actually really cool, and something that I think a lot of people didn't probably take full advantage of, the fact that, everybody's virtual. So I'm going to take advantage of this, and I'm going to connect with people I normally wouldn't probably connect with.
Right.
Yeah. And even with meetups or conferences, like I've heard of like some people's meetups having like 100 people, right? But like once it went virtual, people could have even way more than that, and people from all over. And same with conferences, right? If there was a great networking component, you meet way more people than you would have in person. And I say that for me personally, right? Because even at conferences, I'm not like the one in the middle of the room being like, hey, let's be friends. I'm kind of nervous. But when you are in Zoom and you get put into a breakout room, you automatically meet.
You're forced to.
Yeah. And that's been a saving grace, because I was like, oh, cool. Well, now I can just sit in my living room and be comfortable. Whereas like before, I wouldn't have been comfortable, because like that wasn't a skill that I had. And so it was just phenomenal. And everybody wants to talk in real estate investing, which is that's great in itself. Because like afterwards, you can bring conversations offline and be like, hey, now we can be friends. It worked.
I love it. So so that's cool. Virtual was like it was actually a blessing for you guys, and you took advantage of it, and you were able to do something. Why Tulsa? Why Tulsa? Why not where you're living?
So why not here? It's challenging here. Well, being military, buying
short term,
buying foreign property would be a little bit of a challenge.
Well, and the rates are like completely different if you're not like a native or a citizen.
Yeah, the spread between interest rates and cap rates is very minimal here, and so you can't really make that much money off of real estate.
What's a cap rate in the area? Or maybe you don't know, but if you do know, like what's a cap rate?
I know it's like it depends on where you're at, but it'd be around like 1 or 2, so not very
favorable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Sometimes
and so when people in the U.S. complain about cap rates compressing, you just kind of go, well,
at least we can do it.
Still pretty good.
Yeah.
Still got plenty of room.
To compress further. That's actually what I talk a lot about, is these cap rates. People talk about cap rates compressing, and I say, well, look, if you look at the rest of the developed world, the U.S. actually has pretty good cap rates still, and we're becoming more and more of a global economy where people can invest from. I mean, you guys are from the U.S., right? But you're investing from over in England. Somebody from England could do the same thing that lives there, that's from there. They could do the same thing. And that's what's happening. And, it's just our cap rates, I think, are compressed for reasons, because people can come from all over the place.
Yeah. And I know somebody like from like China, and they actually invest in the UK, because even over here, the cap rates are obviously and everything is much more favorable than it is over there. So it really just depends where you are to decide what's favorable to you.
Yeah. I have an investor from China who said they are, their strategy is to lose money for the first 8 years. And then they figure that after that, they start to make money.
Wow.
So that's kind of an interesting way to look at things. But let's get back to it. So why Tulsa?
Yeah. So when Suzy was mentioning, we started listening to podcasts, so that we also started posting a lot on social media about real estate investing. That ended up bringing a lot of people started, messaging us back and talking about how they're in real estate. I think people we didn't even know that were involved in real estate. And one of those people that messaged us was actually an academy classmate of mine from undergrad. And so he messaged, he's like, hey, I just went full-time real estate. I'm in Oklahoma City. I'm looking to make a move into multifamily as well. Let's talk. And so we had a little chat, and our goals aligned. I've known him for like 15 years more now. And we had a little chat, and I was like, listen, we can do a lot of the things from over here, right? The only thing that we can't do is we can't walk the assets. We can't touch the assets, can't smell the assets, right? And so we need somebody to do that for us. Like, we'll tell you exactly what we need you to do. when you're on the property. He's like, totally cool. I can do that. And so he's in Oklahoma City. One of the markets that we evaluated was Oklahoma City and Tulsa. There's a lot of great markets, and with the current economic situation, whatever's going to happen, we wanted more cash flowing assets than like assets that are banking more in appreciation. So we picked like these, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, like higher cap rates, and in Midwest cities as well. And so in our analysis, Oklahoma City and Tulsa was one of those, and our boots on the ground happens to be in Oklahoma City, and Tulsa is just a short drive from there. And so we started looking at more and more properties in both Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and just happens that we ended up getting our first property in Tulsa, which is also because we're a property management company. Another thing that's made us very successful from over here is our property management company aligns with us so well, right? We trust them completely, and that's huge from being over here because we're not on the ground over there. We have to be able to trust who's carrying out our business plan Monday through Friday, right? Or Monday through Sunday, right? And so we wanted to make sure that we aligned ourselves as a property management company in a specific market that made sense. And so Tulsa ended up being that market. We ended up getting a property there. And now we're really focusing and dialing in on Tulsa because of that. And our property management company is mainly based in Tulsa for now. And it's in Northwest Arkansas.
So let's dig in then a little bit because I think it's super valuable for people who are investing, quite frankly, even in their own backyard, but are, especially if you're investing out of state or out of country. We got to dig into the team. So super valuable. You found a partner that was boots on the ground. Then you have this property management company that you trust. How did you get to know them? How did you verify that they would actually be good? Like, what are some of the key things that you did that maybe somebody else could repeat?
So we interviewed actually like 4 or 5, and we could just tell in the conversations, right? Like when we were talking about like our business plan, we just got a lot of yeses, and we're like, we don't want yeses. Like we need feedback, we're all the way over here. Like you're supposed to totally understand the market. And actually, like we got introduced to an individual who is now like our advisor, and he was also investing in the area. And like I would think one of the first or second conversations, he was like, you have to go with this property management company. Like there's no other ones, because he has 5 assets there. And so he's like, we have gone through them. If you haven't talked to these ones yet, you need to now. And so like even that word of mouth, but
is that the one you picked, the one he said you should go with?
Yeah. Cause then even after having a conversation with her name is Amy, she is the CEO, like it was very interactive, and it still is like, oh, let's wait to do that. Like, let's not do a bunch all at the beginning. Like we need to spread it out. You're going to freak people out. Like, because our big thing, like that was talked about in the beginning, is return on impact. Like we're not going in and trying to add 400 fees all at one time. Like I wouldn't like that. So why would I assume that somebody else would? And, just like having another property manager who actually cares about the residents was like the biggest part. Like we should do events, even for example, right? Like we want to put in a fire pit. And she's like, let's not just put it in, like, let's kind of make it look strategic. Like it's something we thought about. Like she also like cares about the property and wants the property look good because it's also a representation of her and her company, like she's built the company up. She doesn't want people to go to a property and have somebody be like, oh, whoa, like, I don't want to use this property manager because of X, Y, Z. Like,
yeah, that was so English of you to say Z instead of Z. But so 3 actionable things for your listeners, Todd, because you were asking what, how can people replicate what we did? So 3 actionable things is obviously find as many property management companies in your specific market that you're interested in investing in, interview them. And the first thing you want to look for is make sure that they're not saying yes to everything. Make sure that the conversation is bi-directional. Right? Not unidirectional, right? They're not just listening and saying yes, yes, yes. They're not a yes man or a yes woman, right?
Yeah.
And they're actually providing feedback. That's number 1. Number 2, make sure that you get references from from other operators, right? Network with as many people as you can. And when you find people who are investing in the same market, ask them, hey, do you have any references for property management companies? And the third thing is just making sure that how they act and how they treat the residents is how you want to do it, right? Because for us, like when property management companies say tenant, that doesn't, to us, that's like it's a curse word in our ear, right? Because we think of it as residents, not tenants, and we think of them as apartment communities, not complexes or whatever, so like just like little tweaks like that is what we look for when we're interviewing property management companies.
Yeah, that's really good. I really like that last part where they align with what you want. If you're only looking for bottom line, well, then I guess find the property manager that's only looking for bottom line. If you're looking for that impact, that care, that, then find that property manager that looks for that as well and that talks like that. And I like that you mentioned how they talk, because you can ask a question or you can say what your goals are and somebody can say, yes, we agree. But by hearing the conversation that comes out of them naturally, you can tell a lot by somebody talking about their tenants, like you said, versus their residents, by somebody talking about the apartment complex and the money you can make versus the impact. That's a different kind of language and conversation. So really think about how they align. I like that a lot. I think that's super valuable. And of course, referrals are great too. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. What else? So, I mean, again, have you guys visited your properties yet?
No.
Nope.
Yeah. Because COVID's like, still, kind of crushing it a little bit. So what other steps are you doing then to make sure these properties are successful?
So we have weekly Zoom calls with our regional and also the on-site manager. And then sometimes the CEO, pops in every now and then. So weekly calls to make sure that they're carrying out our business plan as we laid it out. So what we did before we took over the properties, we wrote out like a 90-day.
Is it a value add? Sorry.
It is value add.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did right before takeover, we had a sit down with a property management company who said, here is our 90-day business plan. And in that business plan, we laid out, rent increases, what we're going to be spending on each unit turn, what capital expenditures we're going to be doing, and what were our NOI targets and our expense targets, things like that in Q1, 2, 3, 4 throughout the rest of the year. So we shared all that information. We laid out the strategic plan for our property management company, and then they go and run the operational and the tactical level, if you want to get military, I guess. And so so we have the weekly calls. We made sure that our business plan was communicated correctly to them. But then we also use a project management software. We use Asana. So there's plenty out there, Monday.com, Asana, Trello, things like that. We use Asana because we can have our on-site manager, the CEO, and the regional all hooked in, and everybody else who's on the asset management team, all hooked into this one platform. And then we create a task, get quotes for, fireplace or fire ring, or whatever. And so
units that need to be like renovated, like we can see exactly which ones they are and see what steps have been taking place.
Yeah. And so when you create a task in there, you can upload all the documentation to that specific task. Everybody comments on that specific task, and you're not trying to follow like an email trail. That has been huge. So Suzy and I both have experience in project management and program management. And so like, we're just taking what we know outside of real estate through project management and then bringing that inside of real estate. So like leveraging our skill set in order to make sure that we're successful. And that has been huge for us using a project management software.
Yeah, I love it. And really giving that detailed business plan so they understand what they're trying to achieve. Right.
Yeah, you can never hear like, oh, I didn't know. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, you did.
Well, we talked about this, remember? We've gone through this. We showed you this business plan, cut and dry. Well, but I think it does eliminate that possibility for that excuse, but it also aligns, right? It aligns you guys together. And so how do you discipline a property management company when you didn't tell them anything? Right. When you're just like, hey, we just want to make money. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Like these rents are got to get to here. Great. Okay, let's do it. Go do your thing. Well, wait, what do we do? Like, we don't know your expectations. So
spend all the money and don't care. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And so then you use Asana, I like that's something I've been looking at is how do we how do we become a better project manager versus just, like you said, you throw all these emails out there and so a lot of them get lost, or you got just crazy amount of email chains. You're like, I don't even know what happened.
Right.
So this is a system that you can put it all in there. That's great. Did you syndicate your deal, or did you guys, how'd you do that?
We did. We syndicated both of them. We're actually under contract for another property right now. It's just a JV though. So it's our first JV. So we're excited about that. But
nice. Yeah. And so syndicating overseas, was there any hesitation with that? Like, hey, you guys are way over there, or were a lot of your investors from area? Like, how did that work?
So all of our investors are from the US, and actually majority of our investors, like, we're not friends and family. So
we're
like
not.
We're not.
Oh.
Yeah. And so like going back to the whole virtual space, that's how we met all of our investors. Like during meetups or in conferences, like when the Zoom picture was up, like we would take a screenshot and like reach out to everybody afterwards and be like, hey, like what was something you learned from the conference? And, like just start that conversation, because I mean, we had to start somewhere. And so that's just what we did. And when people saw us showing up over and over and over, and when people saw us putting out weekly content and posting on LinkedIn and, like showing that we were truly into this, that is actually what made it easier, right? Because you need those touch points. Like we can't just tell someone, oh, we're investing in real estate. When we finally get a deal, like you'll just get that one email. No, like we have to stay top of mind. And for us to stay top of mind, it was just showing up at the meetups, conferences, checking in on LinkedIn, all of the things. We were like, at one point we were doing 20 to 25 investor calls a week because we knew we needed the momentum. I mean, one person said to us, you needed to start raising capital yesterday. And it was like, oh, okay, jetpacks are going on. We need to start this journey immediately. And so that's just what we had to do. And even by that point, we were still in lockdown. So that was also pretty great, right? When you actually can't leave your house, you have so much more time to do stuff. Like if I had the opportunity to go hang out with friends or say no, that's really difficult for people. No, I can't hang out tonight. No, I have to do this. No, I have to work. We never actually had to say that. And so it gave us a lot of time to just work on this business. And like we have an end goal. And so that was like the biggest part too. Like we have to put a lot of the work in now, or else we might not achieve it. And if we don't achieve it, the only people we can blame is ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. If we don't achieve it, the only people we can blame is ourselves, which is pretty rare these days. A lot of people want to blame everybody else. What was your best source for finding capital then? Was it the conferences? Was it LinkedIn? Was it something else? What do you feel like your best source was?
I think it was probably just a combination of everything.
Finding them at conferences and meetups and then following up on LinkedIn. Yeah. So it was a mix.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So find them through the conference, connect with them to LinkedIn, and then just keep that connection going.
Yeah. And so that's how we did at the very beginning, right? And so that's kind of in our whole marketing piece is like transition now. Like as we're learning more, we're building more into the business, adding more things. So like we started a podcast, we've started a YouTube channel, like we're, blogging all the time and posting like 4 or 5 times a week, if not every, I think Suzy posts every day.
Posting on where?
On both Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn.
And Instagram, actually. So using all 3 platforms. A lot of traction on Facebook, a lot of traction on LinkedIn.
Instagram, we're getting there.
Yeah.
That's a trial.
So now we have all these systems in place, and we have like multiple lead magnets and things like that. So we're getting like, dozens and dozens of cold leads all the time. And now we're just slowly, we have the systems in place now where the cold leads come in and then they become warm and then they become hot leads when they start talking to us. Right.
Yeah.
And so now the leads are just coming in that way versus us going out there and putting all the effort in, because now we're focusing on asset management and the business and setting up the processes in the back end so we can have those cold leads come in that way.
Yeah. And even just over time, like your exposure changes. So now, like some of the meetups I used to attend have gone back in person. It's like, okay, well, what do I do now? Or conferences have gone back in person. So it's like, okay, how do we reach people a different way if like that medium is taken away? And that's definitely where the podcast and the YouTube channel came in, because I mean, that's all we can do until we potentially move back, right? So it's just being creative on those different ways of meeting new people.
Yep, absolutely. Love it. Man, tons of actionable stuff so far. I mean, if you're listening to this, you're going, I want to get into the game, or I want to step up the game. I mean, there's been a ton of actionable steps that we've talked about today. So this has been great. What's a mistake that you guys have made, and how did you learn from it? How can you teach our listeners?
I think a big mistake that we made was like not verifying more deeply on like the rent roll, because who we bought the property from also had in-house property management.
Yeah, so they're vertically integrated.
Yeah, so like just not digging deeper, asking for more like verification and confirmation. That was our biggest mistakes. And like,
was there just some falsification, or was it maybe what was it? Was it just that it wasn't as well occupied, or
yeah, the rent roll was padded. To be straight up honest with you, like it was padded, and we verified the way that you should verify income. Looking at certified documents, and what we should have done is verified multiple different ways, right? And so now you need to ask for like tax returns and things like that.
Like looking at bank statements that directly go with everything, right? Because the individual had 3 properties wrapped in one, and he's like, well, the bank statements have all of the properties. And like right there, I should have known that was a red flag, because I was in accounting, and I'm like, you never have 3 like different businesses for one bank account. I knew that. But also I'm like, I would never do that to somebody. So why would somebody do that to someone else? No, never again. Like I usually start people at 100. Majority of people get to be started at 0 now. Which is,
But the great thing about it is we aligned ourselves to the right property management company, and they took care of it.
They're warriors, really.
Yeah. So the really good operations can mask a lot of, upfront issues.
Yeah. I can imagine if we had a really terrible property management company, we would be, crashing and burning. So
yeah, because now
I wouldn't say crashing and burning, but it would be very more difficult.
A lot more emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I'd be in Tulsa somehow. I would have like taken that canoe and gotten there.
Oh, I could just see you, Suzy, like getting across the ocean. You got your rowboat, You'd be making the Olympics after that. So
woo, I love it.
How do you like to give back?
Oh, so that's a great question. So I'm actually like huge on volunteering. I've done a lot with Big Brothers Big Sisters. I've done a lot with Girls on the Run. And like the main thing with all of that is like just education, and actually like our long term is to be able to like live in different developing countries and communities, and like build schools if that's what is needed, just because like basic education can solve so many problems. And so that's just been huge.
The ultimate goal.
Yeah. Like right now it's been difficult because everything is shut down over here. But previously big on like wherever education is a part of like a volunteer opportunity, then that's what we do.
Yeah. And we're huge on this little analogy here. It's like we like to be, or metaphor, we don't call it, we like to be a barrel full of monkeys versus a bucket full of crabs. Yeah. I was gonna say a barrel full of crabs, but a bucket full of crabs. So if you ever watch a bucket full of crabs, they're all trying to get out, right? And they're reaching up and pulling each other down, right? So you don't want to be in that bucket full of crabs. What you want to be is a barrel full of monkeys, because if you ever played barrel full of monkeys, the monkey is reaching up, grabbing onto the monkey and above him or her, and then also reaching down, right? So not only are you always reaching up, but you're also reaching down, helping other people up. And so we love to give back that way. We always make room on our calendar to chat with anybody who wants to learn more about how we set up our backend processes or anything like that.
Because like that's what helped us, right? Like having people getting on calls who were like way further in the journey than we were, and even like one piece of advice from it, that's the best part. And even with conferences, actually, sorry, now I got to keep going. If you learn one thing from a conference, it was worth it. Like so many people are like, oh, this is too much, I don't know if I'll learn enough, but like one thing is all you need to learn, because like so many of us in this space are like, oh, I read 88 books last year, like that was me. But like, how many like actionable items was I taking from every book? You know what I mean? But like we went to 10 conferences, we probably pulled 1 or 2 things out of each one. And that's what's helped us, just like that little like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. That will work.
Yep. And just meeting that 1 or 2 people as well at each conference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's cool. What's a favorite book? You've read a ton of books, obviously. So what's a favorite real estate or business related book?
So for a business book, I'm going to say Who, Not How. Like just finding all of the who's to do your hows. Because if you try to complete all the hows, you are not going to scale. Like like whatever your queen bee role is, like almost forget about everything else, right? Like we are not social media experts. We are not video editors. We are not all these other things, all these other roles that we try to take on. So like if you find somebody else who's way better at you than it, which there are people out there who are, you just have to like give yourself that grace to like accept it, because then you can go so much further. You can get so much more out there. You won't be working 12 hours a day.
Yeah. And for a real estate book, I actually have 2 recommendations because they should come in a box set, and maybe I'll suggest this to the authors. But if you're looking to get into apartment syndications, the best book about apartment syndications is The Best Ever Apartment Syndication Book by Joe Fairless. That is like the textbook of learning how to syndicate, like at least getting your I'm trying to look what's the word. Anyways, at least getting the initial education piece for apartment syndications. A book that should accompany that is Raising Money for Real Estate, and that is by Hunter Thompson. Raising Capital for Real Estate. And so Hunter Thompson wrote that book, and I think that's the best money raising book that I've ever read. So that helped us a lot.
Cool. Awesome. Some good stuff there. All right. So last question before we wrap up. What are your 3 pillars of wealth creation?
No, yeah, those are really good. So
and maybe you guys each need to do it. I don't know. Maybe it's totally different. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes.
I was like, we talked about this before.
Okay. Well, then we got it. We're good.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm going to say the first one. So I actually think a huge one is giving. So like when you give to others, like you naturally get it back in return, and through that, I think that builds so many different kinds of wealth.
Yeah. And the second one is tenacity. And just like the go-getter, like never give up, find a roadblock, find a way around it, over it, through it, whatever you got to do. I feel like a lot of really successful real estate investors have that. And so it's just huge.
Yeah. And then the third one would be like knowing like your why or your end goal, because that's what is going to give you energy like every day to complete that task, right? So when I said like in the middle of the podcast, like the only people we can blame is ourselves, that's what I mean. And it's not going to take like one try and you're like, oh, this is my end goal. Like you think about it, like you think about like huge. It's almost like vivid vision, like creating your vivid vision, what you want your life to be, what you want your business to be like, how you want to be with your family and friends, with your community, how you want to be with yourself. Like if you know that, and then you can visualize it and write about it and think about it, that's what will give you energy to have 20 to 25 investor calls a week if you need to.
Love it. Giving, tenacity, and knowing your why, knowing your angle. Love those. How can our listeners get in touch with you, learn more about what you got going on?
Yeah, so the best way to get a hold of us, Todd, is just to go to Adventurous, REI.com/info. And that's a landing page where you can read more about return on impact, which Suzy talked about. You can connect with us on LinkedIn there. You can find our podcast, find our YouTube channel, and all the other educational resources we have just on that one landing page. Again, that's adventurousrei.com/info.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes too. Well, Suzy and Michael, really appreciate it. Like you said, it's just tons of action that you've given our listeners today. So, and that I love these episodes. They're like, this is what you need to do. Like now, like we've set a blueprint today. And so just go and do it, like repeat these steps. and you're going to find success. It can be repeated. So keep on being a barrel of monkeys. I love it. And, you guys have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you too,
yeah, it was a
Todd.
pleasure being on. So thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.